Okay, this is a 1993 Ford Explorer XLT 5-speed. The issue I am having is when I release the clutch and go back and put it back in, it will not go into a gear unless I force it into one. Once I force it into a gear, it'll then go into whatever gear you choose until you release the clutch and put it back in again. It will definitely not go into first, and sometimes reverse will give you a grind. So my theory on diagnosing this was that it is the clutch, because clutch in, it won't go in, right? So clutch in, it won't go in. And then once it does want to go in, normally by going to fourth or another gear that has a better synchro, better conditioned synchro, it goes into all the gears until you release the clutch and try putting it back in. So the way I tested to make sure this is the clutch is if I release the clutch and then clutch in and shut the car off, it now goes into gear without having to force it on a synchro. So my theory is that now that the engine has stopped turning, the clutch is no longer, the clutch is no longer spinning with the engine anymore. So it's able to engage the gear. So throughout this video, I'm going to try doing a step-by-step, not step-by-step, but just a good thorough video on how to do the clutch on this truck and how difficult it might be from my research. So we'll see. Okay guys, so I have it up on the lift, and under here I've started by putting marks on the drive shaft just so that I know the exact spot it was put on by the factory, so that if it was, because you see these little weights on it, so if the balance, so it's basically just to make sure that when you put the drive shaft back on, that the balance is perfect, because it was done by, the manufacturer. So rather than having to go get it rebalanced or having to try to fiddle around and find out which one, it wouldn't really make a difference, but just in this case I'm doing it anyways. I also did the front drive shaft, just in case. This one's a little weird because of the weird clips that you have to take off, so I just put another mark right there. So next, this doesn't come off because it's riveted on. A lot of people cut these rivets and then put a lot of people will cut the rivet and put a bolt through there. I don't really care that much. It's just a little bit extra work just to get the transmission over this. What else? We gotta take the exhaust out because there should be 4 bolts all the way around. We'll see how hard those are to get off. Also gonna have to remove the O2 sensors. What else? So exhaust all the way back. You can see I've already replaced these. That was a pain in the butt. I had to drop the whole front end, or most of the front end at least. And then we're gonna have to take, so here's the transmission. So we're gonna have to drop this piece. Should be 1 bolt here, and then the 2 bolts here, and it should drop and come out. Then this rock pan has to come out, and we'll take the drive shaft out, transfer case out, front drive shaft out before the transfer case. And then once the transfer case is out, then we can start working on this and getting all the bolts off and draining it. I'm also going to drain the transfer case before I take it out, just so it's a little bit lighter. Plus I got to change the fluid anyways. So I'll update you guys when I get further. Thanks. Okay guys, I got the drive shaft out. It's over there. I also got the one that dustpan out. I loosened all of these bolts, and I've also PB blasted, or some people WD-40 them, every single thing that's going to be coming off, so that it's soaking right now, so that when it's time to take it off, it's ready to come off. I removed both O2 sensors. It's kind of hard to see here in the dark. I have not tried loosening the top exhaust bolts yet. I will do that after this. But I did loosen all these on this whole bracket to make sure that they're going to come off. So yeah, then I got the drive shaft off. I have not tried loosening any of these yet. I still have to disconnect all these connectors. And that's pretty much where I am right now. Next is exhaust. Or probably first I'll do transfer case. So I'm still continuing to do the transfer case first, just so I can get to the transmission and have more space. And then from there, when I'll support the transmission after draining it, I'll support it so that I can remove this bracket so I can get the exhaust out easier. So, and then while I'm removing the transfer case, I still have to undo these bolts here and here so that this differential will come out. I mean, not differential, am I saying? So that this front drive shaft will come out as well. Yeah, so I'll update you guys in a few minutes. Okay, so as you can see, I've gotten a lot done. I'll show you what I've done in a second when I get the car up in the air. First, I wanted to show you what I have to do on the interior. So you can see here that I removed everything down to the bare transmission. Basically, you get this boot cover off. I'll show you real quick. So you get this boot off. The way you get the boot off when it's on the car is you peel back each corner. Get better light. You peel back each corner and there's screws on 4. On mine, it seems the previous guy who worked on this truck decided to only put 2 in. Then to get the shift knob off for mine likes to come off randomly when you shift. So it looks like it's like been worn out on the inside. So for me, I just twist it until you hear a click and then it'll pull out. So so you just go twist and then it should pull out. Once you get that out, you'll see, I'll show you. Once you get that out, you're gonna see this, which is your, I don't know what you want to call it, shift bar, sure, right? And you're gonna see the bolt. So it's like this in the truck. This like to the right is the front of the truck. So it's like this. You're gonna undo the nut, and you're gonna put it on the other end, on this end, and you're gonna tighten the nut, and it should pull it out. For me, I just had to tap the other side with the wrench, and it came out to the left. So it's pretty simple. You just, like I said again, I'll just do it again so you guys make sure. So you take off this nut and put it on this end, and then you as you're tightening it, it pulls it out. But for me, I just had to hit it with the wrench. So here, let's get the car up in the air. Okay, so up in the air, you can see I decided not to take the whole exhaust out. I felt like it was unnecessary. Plus, I figured it'd be a pain in the butt to get these hangers off. I already tried a little bit, and I was like, I'm not gonna waste my time on that. So I just took the risk of breaking a bolt, and I disconnected them here. Being a California truck its whole life, there's not much rust, so the bolts are in very good shape. So in general, let's see. So right now I have the transmission supported. I dropped this beam real quick just to get the exhaust out. These ones came out easy as well, the ones on the headers. And then I put it back in so I can go up top, and because I forgot to get everything disconnected up top. I started to remove the transfer case bolts right here. So it's basically the only the bolts furthest back. They're a really pain in the butt to do. I'm guessing from the factory they're a lot easier to get out. Just the last people who worked on this car put a lot of thread locker on them. So it's a pain in the butt, but they're coming out. It just takes a long time for each one. And after that, I'll pull the transfer case out, drop this, support the transmission, and then get these bolts out. And then hopefully the rest of it goes smoothly. And I hung the O2 sensors up here with zip ties. Where did I put the other one? The other one's way up there, just so that they wouldn't be in the way and I wouldn't hit them by accident. I zip tied all the wires out of the way. Like I said, I hung the exhaust out of the way because it'd be falling down a little bit. And I had to pull the front drive shaft out. I had to wait until I got this bar out so that I could swing it around and drop it. So what I did was I supported the transfer case while I removed this real quick and got the front drive shaft out and the exhaust out, and I put it back in with this little block of wood just to hold it in so I don't have to lift right here right now. Yeah, pretty much it's just it's like a puzzle. It's like trying to take apart a puzzle. And so I'll come back to you guys when I continue on. Okay, so I removed the transfer case. I was these numerous bolts here around the edges. And then with a friend of mine, we used this hydraulic lift pulled it out. So there it is. So now it came out pretty easily. It wasn't that hard to get out. I had to use an impact to get all of the bolts off. It was just faster and easier without having to smack my hand on the piece of metal or something like that. So next, I just took the starter out as well. I'm hanging it here by a zip tie. Hopefully it doesn't break. I disconnected the quick disconnect. The way you do this is you push it in. It was a pain in the butt to do, but we got it eventually. And I think we may have also broke it in the meantime. So now I just have to take all the bolts off around the belt housing, and it should slide right out. Okay, so it's out. I've actually done a lot since last time I recorded. You can see that I already got the flywheel out. Let's see. So the flywheel got out. I noticed a leak up here, oil leak, motor oil, and I did a lot of time thinking and researching, trying to figure out what was leaking. This is a pushrod engine, so, and I think the lower intake manifold gasket is leaking because it's all right in the center basically, and all the oil is coming out from where the push rods are. It's not. I'm glad that I found it out now, and I can still continue and put the transmission back in and everything, and then later on I can take apart the top of the engine from up top and replace the lower intake manifold gasket. So from here, I still need to drain the oil. I have to go tomorrow and buy more oil and a new filter. And I have a new rear main seal to replace, just for the future, just while I'm here, I'm replacing it. I'm gonna clean the back of the engine, once again, just because I'm here. Over here on the transmission itself, I just replaced a new shifter bushing. It was really wiggly before, and it was destroyed. There were no bushings left, so I put that new kit on there, so it's firm. Should be like new. And I removed I pressure washed the whole thing too, and I removed the slave cylinder, and as you can see, this bearing is shot. So here's an old throwout bearing, right? It feels very grindy, and it feels like there's marbles in there. And then here's the same one, and you can see that it doesn't wiggle back and forth, and it turns like butter. It turns very nicely and smooth. I'm not gonna. So when I ordered my clutch, they gave me this new release bearing, and the new new slave cylinder comes with a different kind of style release bearing. It's the same distance, same everything. There's just a different kind of design. Because this one has failed like this in only about 50,000 miles. I think I'm gonna go with not using the same style again. I'm gonna try something different and go with this style and see how far that one gets me. That's just the way I'm deciding to do it on my truck in the situation I've been given. Another thing is, in 1999, my truck's a 93. In 1999, the truck went in for service because these here these plugs used to be rubber. And the rubber would shrink within the first 3 years of the trucks being manufactured. This transmission's an M4OD R1, and so the transmission was rebuilt, and they replaced these with metal plugs. Well, these are still leaking a little bit, so I just took some black RTV silicone and just went around there just to try to stop them a little bit. They're not leaking so much that I care. It's just while I'm here, I'm just gonna put some silicone on them to try to slow it down. Pretty much that's it right now. I have to put installing a new flywheel, and the new clutch, new pressure plate, and here's the old pressure plate here. Kind of mess there's the old one, the old clutch. The clutch wasn't really worn, and I'm really satisfied with the idea of my research tells me, and what I've been told by people is, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you have a throwout bearing that's this bad and with that much rust on it, it has a tendency to stick a lot. and that's what was happening, is it would stick, and if I revved the engine, it would unstick, basically, and if I gave the engine a lot of torque load. So I'm satisfied that this part is really destroyed, and that when I put a new one in, my truck will probably shift smoothly. If it doesn't, then I'll know something's wrong with the transmission. But from what I can see, it's shifting very smoothly right now on the bench, but again, you don't know until it's in the car. So I'm doing a shot in the dark here, but it's worth making this video as well so you guys can see what it's like taking this transmission out of this truck. Quick note here, it's kind of dark, sorry, but if you look at right here, this is where the pilot bearing sits, and you can see that it's got some heat. I'm running my nail across it and I don't feel any scoring or any indents or anything, so that's good. It's a good sign. So it looks like that all these dark marks are just from heat, from it heating up. So I took some wet 600 grit sandpaper and I wet it, and I just sanded it across just to make sure that's nice and smooth, and so that we're given the best advantage. So that's the tip. And I have the new slave cylinder put in. It's really easy, it's just 2 bolts. I put some thread locker on there because I came out with them, so I decided to put some in again. And I just went about as tight as I felt they were when I took it out. I could not find a torque spec. If I looked hard enough, I probably could, but it's tight enough, it's gonna work. And now it's just time to clean the engine and get it back in. Okay, so I got the new flywheel in. What I had to do was I had to press out the holding ring. So there's an inner ring, which is the pilot bearing, right? And there's an outer ring here. So I had to go over to the hydraulic press and press this fitting out of the old flywheel, and then also press the pilot bearing out. And then I put a new pilot bearing in with the old holding. I also replaced the remain seal that was behind it, and I put some silicone up here on the lower intake gasket that was leaking, just to try holding it for now until I want to fix it. You can see on this flywheel how there's a bigger hole. That's where the holding was. I pressed it out. And this is the old roller bearing. Now when you put the roller bearing in, the side with the little seal, so there's one side has a seal, one side is just the roller bearings. The side with the seal goes towards the input shaft, so towards the rear of the car, so that it forms a seal so that the grease inside the bearing does not go out into the clutch and then get on the clutch, because that would be bad. And what I'm going to do is, I got these on here just wrist tight. I'm going to tighten these down in a star pattern to, first I'm going to do 10 pounds, and then I'm going to do 52 pounds. 52 foot-pounds all the way around. And then you got to make sure that you clean the flywheel surface with a brake cleaner, just like you would do on a brake rotor, to get all the, there's a chemical on here that stops them from rusting. So make sure you do that, and then we'll go from there when we get there. I also did an oil change. Well, I didn't put the new oil in yet, but I got a new filter. I'm gonna use Motorcraft stuff because I feel that's the way God intended, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so I just drained the old oil. It had about 4,000 miles on it, 5,000 miles on it. So new filter, and I'm going to be using Motorcraft. I'm using 5W30. Let's see what else. And that's really it for that. I drained it first, then I replaced the remain seal. Then when I get the car on the ground, I'll put more fluid in. Okay, I topped it off with oil. There's still not enough oil in the oil filter, so I'll have to wait till I run the car and I'll double check the oil, and I'll probably have to put another half quart in. I've taken it made a mess, but I've taken the old master cylinder out of the car, and I have it over here. It was pretty stressful to get that out, because it was pretty stressful to get it out because it still had the push rod on it, and you have to try angling everything around the push rod. or the push rod around everything. So now I have the new. So we're reusing the reservoir, and we're reusing the bottom line. I replaced this O-ring on the end here. So I replaced that O-ring. There's an O-ring that you place inside here where this hose connects in, and it all comes with a kit. And it comes with this new hose, and it goes right into the reservoir. So for the bleeding process, the process is you fill up the reservoir. It has to be on a bench like this. So the issue is when it's in the car, this is the master cylinder. The master cylinder is sitting in the car like this at that kind of angle. So a bunch of air gets pocketed up here. So you have to put it on the bench, and you have to go like this so that the air bubbles have a path to flow all the way up and go all the way up and out. And in the end, you take a don't put the new push rod in here because it'll be stuck. So you gotta use a screwdriver, and you'll push in on here, and you'll know when it's fully bled when you have less than 3/16 of an inch of movement before it gets really hard where you can't even do it by hand. Air is a lot. You can pressurize air a lot more than you can the brake fluid. So that's why it's bad to have air in your system, because the clutch will not fully disengage. So this is the best way to bleed it before it goes in the car, and then I'll throw it in the car, and then when we got the whole transmission back in, we're gonna gravity bleed the slave cylinder. So that the end of that hose goes in right here on this red nipple, and it's gonna go in here, and then we're gonna, just like bleeding brakes, we're gonna bleed it from right here, and it's gonna gravity bleed, and we'll have a fully bled clutch. You can see right now it was just bleeding by itself. Sometimes if you give it a tap on the line, it just stopped right as I started recording. If I give it a tap on the line, it might help. Guess not. So there you go, so there's some bubbles right there. So basically just tapping on the line, you're tapping around. I wish I could, it's really hard to get a video, but basically that's what's happening. Okay, I always start taking the video in this one position, sorry. But I got the clutch in. So if you don't know how to put a clutch in, basically when you have the actual plate on the inside in, you put it in like this, you line up the pilot bearing I'll try to describe it better. Where my index finger is, that's where it goes into the pilot bearing, and the spline goes into the clutch, and it holds it in place and it aligns it so that it's in the right position. And as you tighten down each of the bolts, and there's a special pattern that you do it in, you just keep following. So let me try to give you an example. So you go at this one, you go on the top one of each section, I guess. The first one of each section. I can't even speak. The first one of each section. So you do this one, and then that one. 1 second. Then that one. And you go around, you do the second one of each section. This one, that one, and that one. So that's basically the pattern that you do it. And as you're tightening them down, you're grabbing this, you're making sure that, I'm trying to get good light on it, that it moves freely like this, that it's nice and even. What happened to me the first time was it tightened up and I couldn't move it, so I loosened everything up again, and I started just tightening little by little, all the way around, just making sure that this stays the same. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm using little paint to mark that I've already torqued down the bolts to the correct torque. These went down about 24 foot-pounds each for each one. So, and that's by the book. Okay, so I got the exhaust back in. And I connected both of the two sensors again. And I got the transmission back in first before I got the exhaust back in. It was pretty easy. Then I plugged in the master into the slave. You just give it one good push in, and you'll hear it click in. and I gravity bled it by cracking the top bleeder screw until fluid came out. I started the car up and tested it out, and it works. So we've made a lot of progress, and it does not bind anymore. It's actually going into gear very easily, and we'll wait till we get the car actually on the ground and driving, because we still gotta get the transfer case in and the drive shaft in, etc., and connect the exhaust. Right now I put the front drive shaft in right now, so now I gotta put the transfer case in, and that's really it. Okay, everything's put back together. So all of it's put back together now, and I filled up the transmission. I used Mercon 5. I ran out of Mercon 5, so I used about half a quart of Dextron Mercon. It won't really make a difference, they're basically the same thing. In the transfer case, I used Dextron Mercon. I was told you're not supposed to use Mercon 5 because there's something in it that will destroy your transfer case. So that's why I had Dextron Mercon. And I torqued down every single bolt that I touched. I torqued down to the correct specification just for the heck of it, for peace of mind. Okay, so now let's go for the test drive. Okay, this is the moment of truth. Sounds very cliche. Let's find out. May throw on the shift knob just so it's a little bit more comfortable. It's like, what time is it? It's like 1:15 in the morning. My sleep schedule is really off. Reverse. It bites right away. It might still need it bleeding. It still is having a hard time going into first gear. But that made it make sense that it needs a bleeding. Let's see. I can hear the clutch rubbing like it should. So the clutch used to grab really high, and now it grabs right kind of where it should. I think it still needs to be bled a little bit. We're just doing a test drive. Much better. I mean, the clutch feels very light. I don't know if that's normal. I'll have to bleed it. I'm gonna bleed it no matter what. My friend's gonna come tomorrow. It's much faster. Should probably put on my seatbelt. That's a good idea, right? Always. A lot of the cars that I work on don't have seatbelts. So right now, I'm just listening for weird noises. I have all the windows down. I basically touched the whole drivetrain of the car. So there's a lot to be listening for. It's much more smooth. So the big issue was when once it got hot is when it got harder to shift. So but it's a lot easier to shift now than it normally is when it's cold. So I really imagined it was also just needed a fluid change, but I really wanted to go through and make sure I knew the condition of everything. So now that I know the condition of everything, I know it's all brand new. I know I'm the one that worked on it, you know. Let's see, clutch out, clutch in, it goes right into gear. It's a little sticky still, I mean it's a little rough. It's a totally different car now. For the good, it's a lot better now. It's more car than truck. Before it was very rugged, and right now it's shifting very smoothly. The clutch is very light. No abnormal noises. All the noises are the usual noises. There's rocks in my tires. Okay guys, I think we're good. Hey guys, so I just got home and we've driven about 12 miles on the new clutch. So it's working really well. I don't think it actually needs to be bled. I think it's fine. I think the problem is actually the synchros themselves, but I don't really care about that. It goes into gear whenever you want to take off now. There's a slight exhaust leak from the stripped threads that the previous owner, or the previous guy who had worked on the transmission had left. Because I guess he had stripped them and he just kind of rammed it in there. So when I took it out, I found out that it was also stripped. I rammed it in there. I rammed the bolt and the thread as far as I could. As much as I could with the impact. It seems it didn't make a complete seal still. There's a little bit light tick, but it's not really that bad. It's kind of annoying, but it's nothing's hurting the car. It drives fine, it shifts fine, it accelerates fine. I'm not going to floor it until I reach about 500 miles. I'm going to do a 500 mile break-in period of just casually driving around town. No highway, all city. So that's pretty much it. That's the whole story here. I hope to make more videos like this in the future. Maybe, you know, in the future when I start doing more repairs on this car. There's not much that it needs right now, but it'd be cool to make a cool video series. So thank you guys for watching.